Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, you guys. Welcome back to another true crime story. As you can tell, I am joined today by all of my fur babies. They wanted to make an appearance on the channel today. They have quite a bit of energy right now, so they've been like moving around, causing a ruckus behind me, so I apologize if they are distracting or causing a ruckus throughout this video. If you are new here, hello, my name is Jessica. I upload true crime stories every single Friday, sometimes a Tuesday here and there. If you like true crime, I highly recommend that you subscribe down below, give us a thumbs up, and follow us on TikTok, which will be right here. Today's case is gonna be a little bit longer than any of my other videos before. I don't want to say it's a deep dive because I really don't consider it a deep dive. I try to include as many of the meat and potatoes of this story while also including some details that aren't as important, but they do give a lot of background and they help us understand more of the story. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right on into the case. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Everything we say in this video is 100% alleged. We mean no disrespect to anybody involved in today's case. So in today's case, we're going to learn about how a web of lies got spun so out of control that it led to 2 deaths. Our case begins with the Halderson family, consisting of Krista and Bart Halderson, and their 2 sons, Mitchell and Chandler. Chandler was the baby of the family, being around 18 months younger than his brother Mitchell. In 2021, the family was living in Windsor, Wisconsin. By this point, older brother Mitchell had already moved out of the family home to live with his fiance in a house that they had just purchased together. He had accepted a pretty high-paying job at the tech sector and was really excited to start a family and begin this beautiful journey with his fiance. Younger brother Chandler moved out of his parents' home during his freshman year of college. However, after about a year, due to some unforeseen circumstances, he was forced to move back in with his parents, where he was now paying a small amount of rent. It was said that Chandler's parents charged him rent to kind of motivate him to not want to stay that long. They figured it would motivate him to get back on his feet quicker and move out and start his own life. So Chandler was definitely not happy about having to move back in with his parents, because his parents still, even though he was an adult, they did apply strict rules on him on the things that he was and wasn't allowed to do. And so as you can imagine, this ended up causing a lot of tension between Chandler and his parents. Chandler believed that he was an adult and that he did not need rules applied onto him, onto his life. However, his father's argument was that because Chandler was still living under his roof, he would have to abide by his rules. I'm sure most of us can relate to this situation. Living with our parents as adults, it's a pretty common argument with parents that as long as their child lives under their roof, they have to abide by their rules, whether they are children, they're in their adolescence, or in adulthood. More often than not, this type of scenario ends up leading to tension in the household. During this time, Chandler was working remotely for an insurance firm where he was getting paid pretty good and working full-time hours. He was also volunteering with the police in the search and rescue department that searched for missing persons and bodies. Chandler was also enrolled in a few classes at Madison Area Technological College, where he mainly focused on taking IT courses. Because of his knowledge in the field, Chandler would eventually be offered a remote job at SpaceX. This was really impressive to those in his life because getting a job at SpaceX was pretty impressive, and they only hired the best of the best candidates. SpaceX was founded by Elon Musk and Tom Mueller in 2002. This company was created to design, manufacture, and launch advanced rockets and spacecrafts. Their ultimate goal was to revolutionize space technology, which could lead to enabling people to live on other planets. Chandler had accepted this job offer from SpaceX, and he was starting to work from home for them, and he would eventually plan to move out to Florida to work with them in person. However, these plans would soon be put on hold when one night, on his way to the bathroom, Chandler suddenly fell down the stairs in his home. He was then taken to the hospital, where doctors would give a diagnosis of a slight concussion with bruising to the neck and ribs. Chandler's father would find this diagnosis to be kind of odd because he was sleeping in the room nearby, and he claims that it sounded like Chandler had just had a slight fall. He said it only sounded like a little thud, nothing that would cause a concussion or any major injuries. Unfortunately for Chandler, his symptoms would only get worse. He suddenly started to lose feeling in his legs, which inhibited him to stand for long periods of time. Chandler would go on to complain to those around him about having a brain bleed that would eventually cause him to be paralyzed due to the spinal and nerve damage. Before all of this happened, Chandler's life seemed to have been going great. He was headed in the right direction in his life. He had just gotten this new job at SpaceX, which was really impressive. He would have been making really good money. He was going to move out to Florida. He had a girlfriend in his life that he had planned to move in with later on. He was approaching his graduation at school. Everything seemed to be going really great for him. He was very upset that in a blink of an eye, his whole world had turned upside down and he had lost everything. His disability and injuries would eventually lead him to lose that job opportunity with SpaceX due to all of the errors in his work because of the brain injury. Now, after hearing all of this, you might be surprised to know that none of this was true. Everything I just told you about this time of Chandler's life was an absolute web of lies created by Chandler himself. Okay, so let's go over the true details of Chandler's life. True details of his adult life were that he did graduate high school and went on to attend college, and he did move out into an apartment with some friends during his freshman year of high school. However, he ended up failing out of college, which is what caused him to have to move back with his parents. So it wasn't due to unforeseen issues like he had claimed. It was actually because he wasn't putting in the work. He wasn't doing what it took to pass his classes. He failed out of college and he had no choice but to leave. Chandler did not want his parents to know these details, as he often compared himself to his older brother Mitchell and didn't want to disappoint his parents. And so during this time is when Chandler started to create this web of lies to make himself look equal or better to his brother and everybody around him. He wanted to appear to the world that he was a successful young man who was creating a great life for himself, working hard to work a full-time job while putting himself through college and obtaining that job at SpaceX. However, as we learned, none of this would actually be true. So we know Chandler failed out of college and he was no longer attending, right? But he was telling everybody in his life, especially his parents, that he was still attending and that he was doing pretty good. He even went as far as to create this like fake class schedule for the semester that he would talk to his peers and his parents, and he would often show his girlfriend whenever she would want to hang out. He'd be like, well, I can't because I have classes, like here's my schedule, these are the days I can and can't hang out. Like he went as far to really put in a lot of work into faking being in school, when it's like, why didn't you put all of that hard work in actually going to school? So Chandler would eventually come to realize that his lies were starting to get out of control and they were starting to become a problem, because one of the problems was that graduation was soon approaching, and what was he going to do? Everybody was expecting him to be graduating, but of course he wasn't attending, so there's no way he was going to graduate. So he was starting to panic a little bit, wondering how he was going to get himself out of the situation. And so there was actually a time where his father Bart had requested to see Chandler's transcripts because I guess he needed them for tax purposes, and as we know, he did not have any transcripts because he wasn't going to school. So obviously he started to freak out, but Chandler would solve this problem the best way he knew how, by lying. Chandler went on to create a fake email address for a school advisor by the name of Daniel Spythe. Chandler would use this fake email account to send emails to his personal account and would send messages pertaining to the school system being updated, which is causing delays in obtaining the transcripts. He would then show these email conversations to his father to explain why he was unable to provide the transcripts. However, his father Bart wasn't really happy about this response, and so he asked Chandler to add him onto this email thread so that he can talk to the school advisor himself to try and get some solutions to this issue. In an effort to not seem suspicious, Chandler did as his father asked and added him to the email chain. So after various emails between the three parties, Bart, Chandler, and this Daniel guy, Bart decided that he was done with these email conversations and he wanted to actually meet with the school advisor in person to talk face to face to solve this issue, because this whole email thing back and forth was just not doing it for him. It wasn't bringing him any solutions quick enough. Oh my god, I had no idea this was going on. Now, by this point, Chandler is obviously freaking out. He's panicking because Daniel Spythe does not exist. He is not a real person. He is Chandler himself. And so Chandler knows that there is no way in hell that this meeting can actually take place, right? However, meeting in person was not possible at this point, and so Bart just settled for a Zoom call. The day of the Zoom call would soon arrive. However, Daniel Spythe would actually cancel on Bart, claiming that a family member had gotten COVID. Again, Bart Halderson did not like this response. He felt like Daniel was being very unprofessional and demanded to be put in contact with another person from the department. And at this point, Chandler's starting to realize that his dad's not just going to give up on trying to get these damn transcripts. He was going to find a way regardless, whether it was go down to the school himself, talk to another person from the department. He wasn't just going to sit there and wait and wait and wait or forget about it. He was going to do anything he could to get what he needed. So Chandler would go on to buy a burner phone and pretend like that number belonged to Daniel Spythe, and so he would give this phone number to his father and tell him to go ahead and call Daniel and talk to him over the phone yourself. But of course, as we know, on the other line it was actually Chandler. Bart Halderson called the number and had a conversation with Daniel, pretty much asking him the same questions he was asking him in the email thread, but the two didn't get anywhere. It would be after this that Bart would go on to tell his wife Krista that this Daniel guy sounded a lot like their son Chandler. So Bart Halderson was starting to get really frustrated and impatient with this whole process. He wasn't understanding why it was taking so long to obtain this set of documents when the school should have them. They should be able to send it right over. In his mind, there was no reason for all of these delays. So Bart started to threaten that he was going to go down to the school and speak to somebody in the department himself and get what he needed. And so this is when Chandler ended up creating another fake character by the name of Alyssa Brandt. Chandler started to email his father as Alyssa and Daniel and would schedule meetings that never took place and tried to convey to his father that they were working the best that they could to resolve the issue. Luckily for Chandler, this was the prime of COVID-19, and so a lot of things were being delayed, and it was easy for him to just blame the delays on the pandemic. However, as many times before, as the charades continued to go on longer and longer, Bart was really starting to get more and more frustrated and impatient with Chandler, with the school, with this whole situation in general. So he once again started to threaten to go down to the school if nobody was giving him answers. And so this is when Chandler would create a third fake profile by the name of Aaron Hoover, who served as another member of the department that was there to help Bart and Chandler with their issue. However, of course, this person also brought no solutions. So it was during this time that Chandler was also lying about his job with the insurance firm. He pretended like he was working from home every single day, when in reality he would just sit in his room and play video games all day. And the friends he met while gaming would often pretend to be coworkers having a conversation about work whenever his parents would be within distance to be able to hear him. Now, of course, I mentioned earlier that Chandler was required to pay rent if he was going to be living at the house. And so you might be asking, if he didn't really have a job, how was he paying rent? Well, the short answer is he wasn't. Chandler had come up with numerous excuses as to why he wasn't receiving his paychecks. One of them being that HR had actually screwed up the information in the system, and so because of this, they weren't able to release his paycheck until all of the information was corrected. However, that excuse would only be good for like a couple weeks. It's definitely not something that would be able to suffice for a really long time, so he had to come up with the second excuse. And the second excuse was that HR had finally fixed the issue that they were having, but because his paychecks were so backed up, the final amount that was deposited into his bank account was so large that the bank ended up rejecting it. Now, something to note is that Bart Halderson actually worked in an accounting firm, and so he knew that none of this made sense. He knew that that's not really how things work, and so he was getting a little bit suspicious of his son. It's safe to say Chandler went above and beyond to make his lies seem believable. However, despite all of his hard work to keep up these lies, his father Bart was really starting to become suspicious of Chandler. But at the same time, Bart didn't want to believe that his son was lying to him. He didn't want to believe that somebody would go to these extreme lengths to fake all of this. So shortly after this, Chandler would go on to start complaining to those around him and to his parents about this insurance firm job that he had. He would go on to say that they were very unprofessional and it was just not a good environment, and that he was actually thinking about leaving that job. And so this is when the lie about working at SpaceX began. So just a little recap up until this point. Chandler graduates high school, he goes to college, he moves out with his friends, he ends up failing his first year of college, has to leave, move back with his parents, but he doesn't want to work, he doesn't want to tell them he's not going to school, so he lies about it. He tells them that he has a work from home job with this insurance firm. He has all of these excuses as to why he can't pay rent. His father is needing transcripts for tax purposes, but obviously since he's not going to school, he's trying to come up with all of these different excuses and scenarios that would prevent him from obtaining those. And so now, because the lies about the insurance firm job have gotten so out of hand and his parents are demanding that he pay some kind of rent, he decides to tell his parents that he's quitting that job. And so that's when he decides to apply for a job at SpaceX. He tells his friends and family that he was given the job opportunity, and now he plans to move to Florida to work with them face to face, full time. And it was said that this plan to move to Florida was kind of like, in Chandler's mind, his way out. He figured that if he were just to move away, all of his problems would go away. He wouldn't have to answer to his parents, he wouldn't have to worry about school, he would just be able to move away. So he was really trying to find a way to get some money to move to Florida and kind of escape this web of lies and this world that he created. So now we're at the point where he is working for SpaceX and planning to move to Florida. As I mentioned in the beginning, this wouldn't be able to happen because Chandler had a fall. So this now brings us up to speed in the time of Chandler's life where he fell down the stairs and was injured so bad that all of his opportunities were taken away. He was now unable to work, go to school, and pretty much do anything. Just to backtrack a little bit, something to note is that prior to Chandler's fall, his brother Mitchell, who struggled with type 1 diabetes, was actually put in the hospital due to his diabetes. And because of this, Bart and Krista ended up doting on Mitchell and doing everything in their power to help take care of him. To Chandler, it seemed like Mitchell didn't have to worry about anything else at this point. Because his health wasn't in good condition, he wasn't really worried about work and all of the other stressors of life. His main priority was to focus on healing himself with the help of his parents. Chandler realized how this made his brother Mitchell's life a little easier because he didn't have to worry about working at this point. He didn't have to worry about doing anything because his parents were there to provide him with anything that they needed. They doted on him, they gave him all this love and attention, and this sparked an idea in Chandler's mind. And so this is when Chandler had this horrific fall down the stairs that caused him so much injury that he was now also unable to do anything and relied on the support and affection and attention and care of his parents. However, we now know that Chandler wasn't actually hurt and he most likely did not have a concussion. However, a concussion is one of those things that cannot be tested. Doctors pretty much have to take the patient's word, and Chandler knew this, and so that's why he picked a concussion specifically. Chandler went as far as to wear a neck brace to really sell the part of being injured and unable to perform a lot of movement. He would constantly complain about being in pain, having migraines, not being able to lift anything, and complaining that his legs were in pain and were starting to lose feeling. He was honestly just really putting on the dramatics to sell this part of being this injured person. Chandler tried to convince those around him that this injury was supposedly supposed to leave him paralyzed for life and unable to work, go to school, or do anything. And he also tried to convince everybody that he would need help for the rest of his life. However, we know that Chandler made all of this up because his doctor never once said that any of those things would happen. He even told him that he didn't think he really had a concussion or a brain aneurysm and all these crazy things that Chandler was saying, and that he really didn't need the neck brace. But of course, Chandler put on the dramatics and insisted that he had a concussion and was also insisting to be provided with a neck brace. And so the doctor did provide him with the neck brace, but told him that he really didn't need to use it. But if he felt like he was in pain and he felt like he needed it, then by all means wear it. And boy, did he wear it. Chandler wore this thing 24/7. There was even a night that they went out for dinner. I can't remember what for, but they went out to dinner and Chandler refused to take it off. It was just so ridiculous. Like, he did not need it at all. He was completely fine, but he refused to take it off. However, things did not turn out according to plan for Chandler. His father, Bart, was still on a mission to obtain those transcript records, and he was not going to stop just because Chandler was was now injured. And if anything, he was really trying to put pressure on the school to help his son because he believed that he was now injured and he couldn't really do things on his own. And so, if anything, he was trying to help him. On June 29, Bart Halderson called the college, pretending to be his son Chandler, and decided to speak to someone in the department to finally get answers after going back and forth over a year and a half with Alyssa, Aaron, and Daniel.
Hey, I'm trying to get an appointment scheduled to meet with somebody to mainly just get a copy of the transcript and also a printed copy of a certificate that was earned and their degree verification.
You have to go online and request it.
Yeah, I tried requesting them online and we never got them. And I've spent I don't know how many times doing that and at $8 a piece, so I'm not willing to do that again. I tried to work with Daniel Spike to see if he can get through the information. I don't know if he's with you guys anymore. But
okay, I mean it's pretty easy to request a transcript.
I thought too, and
you just go to the
it
website.
hasn't come through.
Okay, what's your first name?
Chandler, CHANDLER. Last name is HALD as in David, ERSON.
Okay, so it looks like you owe a balance. You owe a balance of $2,349. That's why you can't request it.
Can I schedule a time to actually come in there and pay all that and resolve everything at one time?
The payment center is open, yes. You can come in. Somebody will be there.
Can they do an unofficial transcript?
Yes. If you have to pay the balance, though. You have to pay the balance first. Then you can obtain whatever you want to obtain.
Okay, now how long does it take to do an unofficial transcript from you guys?
Right away. You can download it. It's PDF that you can download right away.
Now, if we've earned a certificate, say, in that solar program,
You said,
where does that get requested through?
I don't see that you earned a certificate.
How far back does that account go that you're looking at? Like when was the first class taken?
Spring of 2018.
Oh, okay. So that does have all the history then.
So I don't see that you were admitted in any program.
You said they were, it's the IT degree is in there, right?
No, those are just classes. Like you took general education classes and then the IT classes. You might have just took the classes but not be in the program.
The internship from the spring show up in there?
No.
Does normally show up in there?
Yes, if the internship is part of the curriculum, yes.
Do you have an Alyssa Brandt that works in that area or anywhere in the campus?
No. All the branch. There's no Alyssa with all the last name that I put.
Does Daniel Spice still work there?
No, it's not showing up.
Bart Halderson takes a very long pause at this point. It's likely that this is the moment he realized that his son had actually been lying to him the whole time.
Okay, that should have done. Okay, thank you for your help.
So Bart Halderson is now aware of the fact that his son has been lying to him this whole time. He's not actually attending school and he wants to know what else is he lying about. So he decides to let his son know that he spoke to somebody from the school because prior to this, his son had no knowledge of his father wanting to make that phone call. And so he let him know, and in an effort to confront his son about all of the lies, he set up a Zoom meeting with the actual school advisor, himself, and Chandler. This meeting was scheduled for July 1st around 3 p.m. However, Bart would never make it to the meeting. In fact, he would be dead. It's July 1st, 2021. The day seemed as normal as all the other days had been, except in Chandler's world, this would be the start of his web of lies being unraveled. And unfortunately, in Bart and Krista's world, this would be the last day of their lives. Now, the details of what exactly happened that day aren't 100% known. All we know is what detectives theorized based on all the evidence that was found, as Chandler has never publicly admitted to his crime. So what detectives think happened is based on the evidence right before the meeting was scheduled on that day, Bart sent a text message to Chandler letting him know that he was ready for the meeting. However, shortly after this, Chandler shot his father multiple times in the back. However, we don't know how many times he was shot, nor the exact time that that this occurred, or really any other details surrounding this moment. All we know from the evidence is that Bart was shot and died shortly after 3 p.m. Chandler's mother, Krista, was at work during this time, and we assume in an effort to buy some time and to not cause any suspicion, Chandler texted his mom and notified her that his father's phone was dead. It's assumed he did this so that she wouldn't become worried if Bart didn't respond or answer his phone. Later on that day, Krista had finally arrived home from work. However, she would never be seen leaving her home after this day. We aren't really sure how Krista was killed, but we know that it was in the home, and so it's believed that Chandler's motive for killing his parents was to avoid being caught and to avoid his web of lies being unraveled. It seems like Chandler believed that this would be his only way out. He felt like he was stuck in a situation where he was unable to get out of, and I guess he felt desperate enough to conceal his lies, and he felt like the only way to do that is to kill his parents. Bart and Krista's disappearance did not go unknown for that long, as Krista never missed a day of work. She was never late, she never missed a day, and if she wasn't going to be there, she would definitely call to let them know. And so when she didn't come into work on Monday, July 5th, her coworkers started to question Chandler about her whereabouts, as it was really odd behavior for her. So the story that Chandler would tell friends, family, his parents' coworkers, detectives, news people, pretty much everybody, was that Krista and Bart had planned a cabin trip with a couple of their friends who were unknown to anybody, because you see, it was the 4th of July weekend, and so they wanted to enjoy the 4th of July with some friends up at their cabin. And according to Chandler, his parents left so early in the morning before he could even have the chance to wake up and say goodbye and see who the friends were that they were with. He claimed that Krista left him a note letting him know that they were going to be taking off but would be back in a few days. All he knew was that they were going up there with some friends. They took a bunch of cash and alcohol. On July 7, 2021, Chandler went into the police station to report his parents missing. This was after Krista had missed 2 days of work and a doctor's appointment regarding her cancer that she was battling with. It was starting to look suspicious and worrisome, and so Chandler took it upon himself to report his parents missing at this time. He would also begin to appear on news broadcast stations and begging the public for answers in an effort to look as this worried son of missing parents.
Great. And you are Bert and Krista's son?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any siblings?
Yep, I have an older brother.
Older brother. Okay, so it's you guys and your parents. So just, tell me what you're aware of so far, kind of leading up to, what we talked about, I guess. Like, explain, you were talking to your parents about going on vacation and stuff.
They told me Thursday they'd be going for the cabin for the weekend with their friends. After that, really, we just packed up their stuff. They were going to do some minor repairs on the cabin, and we got them tools, just regular going to the cabin stuff, I suppose, and they went with their friends. But I didn't ask who their friends were, so I'm still not really sure.
And you said that the ones that you talked to them about, those friends, you weren't exactly sure who they were?
Well, at the time, I figured it was just the people I'm aware of currently, just their close friends. So I didn't really bother asking another question, like who they were exactly. Other than that, that was kind of it. And then they headed out at Friday in the morning.
And you said that you just weren't sure who they did go with?
Yeah.
What are you guys trying to do right now? What's the next step for you guys?
Well, right now we're just trying to get it out there. So I'm talking to the news. We got Facebook posts. Really, that's all we can do. Hopefully detectives will get back to us soon with new information. We had some sheriffs at the cabin yesterday, so that they didn't really give us much information, though. Like, no one was there, but we were hoping someone was there at one point and everything.
So that's kind of what you're still trying to figure out, too, is if they made it to the cabin.
Yeah. Well, yeah, apparently they did make it. I got a text on Sunday saying they did make it and that they were going to White Lake for like a parade and stuff for the 4th. But usually I think it's just more of a party there at White Lake for 4th, and Memorial Day is the parade. But White Lake is usually busy and pretty fun to go to.
When did you start to think, hey, this isn't like them, or they might be missing?
Well, I was told they'd be home Monday or Tuesday, and Tuesday afternoon I got a little worried, and then Wednesday, when my aunt went to the cabin, they that's when I got worried and I went to make a report.
And that was filed yesterday, I assume? 'Cause it was a
Yes.
couple days. Okay. What, I guess for your family, where are you guys right now? You know, how are you kind of getting through what's happening right now? How are you moving from day to day?
Um, the neighbors got me pizza. My brother should be going to the cabin today just to check it out. We're just kind of keeping busy. Yeah, as long as we're busy, we're not really going to overthink.
Are you staying hopeful, remaining hopeful that you're going to figure out what happened?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They could just be on a boat somewhere having a few drinks or something. No reception on boats, so yeah.
I was just going to ask if reception wasn't very good at the cabin.
It's not during high traffic, like weekends, like the 4th, you wouldn't really get too many texts through. However, today you could call.
The devastating news about Bart and Krista's disappearance made its way through the Halderson family, the community, and the public. Mitchell Halderson, the older brother, became really worried about his parents' disappearance, and so on July 8th, 2021, he joined police officers up at the cabin that they were supposedly supposed to be at. And when they got there, they noticed that the cabin looked like nobody had been there in months. Everything was untouched. The grass was super long, like nobody had been there. There were absolutely no signs of anybody, let alone Bart and Krista. So Chandler would eventually be brought in for questioning, and his story was... My leg fell asleep. Ow. 1 second, please. I've been sitting here too long. Ow. So Chandler would eventually be brought in for questioning because his story just wasn't adding up to police, and they wanted to know more about his whereabouts. The police interview lasted about 2 hours. I will leave the full video linked in the description if you would like to watch the whole thing, but for time purposes, I'll give a quick recap. So the interview would begin with Chandler talking about his life, his family, and pretty much recounting the same story he had given to friends, family, and the public. He also spoke about his neck injury, his girlfriend, and lots of other things that honestly had nothing to do with the case. Unbeknownst to Chandler, detectives already knew more than they were letting on. They had already gathered a lot of damning evidence and were now at the Halderson home performing a thorough search. So detectives ended up receiving information from a farm owner who claims that she had actually seen Chandler walking on her property a few days before his parents were reported missing. Of course, deputies wasted no time making their way to search the farm, and this is when they discovered human remains. A male torso to be exact. And unfortunately, you guys, it was later identified to belong to Bart Halderson. Authorities ended up finding cutting tools that were hidden inside an oil drum at the farm where Bart Halderson's remains were found. It appeared that the blood found on the tools matched Bart and Krista's DNA. A gun was also found hidden in the barn where Bart's remains were found, which was believed to have been the weapon that was used to kill Bart. At the home, forensic experts found that there appeared to be blood in the basement of the Halderson home. The forensic experts also added that there appeared to be evidence of a cleanup. To the naked eye, it looked like the floors were pretty clean. You couldn't really see anything, but when they put the blue light, you could definitely see traces of blood. And what that told forensic experts was that there was definitely a cleanup that happened in order to conceal the truth. Now, the most horrific piece of evidence found in the home were 200 human bone fragments found in the fireplace of the home, which led authorities to believe that Chandler had burned his parents' dismembered remains in the fireplace. This claim would also be backed up by neighbors claiming to have noticed a lot of smoke coming from the Halderson fireplace during the days that the couple was missing. And there was even a video from a neighbor's security camera that captured a flickering light coming from a window at the Halderson home that was believed to have been on the same day that Bart and Krista were killed. So a lot of people in the neighborhood thought it was really weird that the Halderson home's fireplace would was continuously on, because if you remember, this was in the beginning of July. It is hot as hell. It's right in the middle of summer. It's hot as hell. Why the hell would anybody have their fireplace on? So this was definitely alarming and seemed kind of odd to those in the neighborhood. Now, it's something to note, during this time that the authorities were discovering Bart's remains, Krista's remains were still not found. Authorities continued to search for her and would eventually get a major break from Chandler's own girlfriend, Catherine. So Catherine would often keep tabs on Chandler and would track his location on Snapchat. If you guys have Snapchat, you know that Snapchat has a feature where you can share your exact location with your friends, and so Chandler would share his location with his girlfriend Catherine, and that's how she would keep tabs on him. And she noticed that on the day that his parents were supposedly supposed to go on this trip, Catherine spotted Chandler's location on Snapchat to be near the Wisconsin River. She felt like this was a strange place for Chandler to be, and so she took a screenshot and saved it on her phone. Catherine gave investigators permission to download data from her phone, and with this new information in hand, detectives went to search this specific location, and this is where Krista's remains were found.
I think it's time we start talking about what happened to your parents, like the truthful version.
Okay.
Okay? So we have like 20 pages of writing. We're going to start with a clean white piece of paper for you to start telling the truth.
Okay.
What? Because listen to me. This is the only chance you're going to have to tell us the truth.
Okay.
Okay? What we, listen. I can't tell you what we know, but we know you're not, okay? What we, listen. I can't tell you what we know, but we know you're not telling us the truth. We know your parents are no longer with us. Okay? And we know the reason why. Okay? You need to tell the truth. Listen. You need to tell the truth about what happened, and just tell us why it happened. Okay? If something happened, if you were defending yourself, or if you just got fed up with stuff, you need to tell us the truth. Okay? This is your chance to tell us why. Okay? I'm not BSing you. Okay? So can we do that?
Okay. They're okay. Lawyer. I'm sorry. Say it again, Jenny. Lawyer. Okay. Because they're. Okay.
You want a lawyer?
Yeah. They're okay.
Okay.
Okay. They're okay. Yeah. This right down the time there. It's about 6:41.
You're under arrest. Okay?
Okay. What happened? Okay. Can
You know what happened. We're not going to tell you what happened. You know what happened. You were there when it happened.
We know more than you think we know.
I understand. Okay.
There's people that have told us things. We have evidence. We have proof that more has happened. Okay. So your parents never made it to the cabin, and I think you know that. Okay. So you're asking for an attorney. We're not going to ask any more questions.
Stand up.
Stand up.
You want to stand up and just come over here for me? Do you have anything in your pockets at all? Wallet. Just a wallet that just put it.
Chandler Halderson's trial began in January of 2022, and prosecutors did an incredible job at laying out the timeline and proving guilt beyond reasonable doubt. I'm sure as hell Chandler was not expecting them to know all of the information that they presented during the trial, because they had every single piece of evidence, you guys. They had all the emails, all of the lies, all of the profiles of these school advisors that he would create. They had old photos, they had all of his records, they had everything, you guys. All of the text messages, surveillance video, they had everything against him. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, and Chandler Halderson was found guilty on all charges and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I cannot believe that people go to extreme lengths to upkeep these ridiculous and crazy lies. Like I said earlier, if he had just put in as much effort as faking all of this into his schoolwork, he probably could have made something really great of himself. I definitely don't think that he he needed to do all of this, lying about everything. I think he was perfectly capable of achieving everything he wanted, and I just wish that he would have taken a different approach on life and that he would have just taken accountability for his bullshit instead of killing his parents. Well, that is it for me today, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in on another true crime story. Again, please follow our TikTok, subscribe down below. I will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.